Hello and welcome to another On The Bench Extra here on Estuary TV. Today we discuss Scunthorpe United's released players and of course all other football talk. Joining me to do so is Thomas Hardy.
Hello Reidy.
Beard's looking great.
Thank you, mate.
We'll crack on. We'll talk about Grimsby Town. They're on the way to Wembley. Playoff final. Could be a promotion this season. What are your thoughts on that game?
Fantastic that they've got there. Obviously a massive game now against Bristol Rovers, who were a side I said a couple of weeks ago I thought were going to pick the title over Barnet. They obviously didn't do so, and they beat Forest Green in the semis. So a good result for them in the semis as well, and I think it's going to be a very tight final. I can't see there being a massive amount of goals, two teams that don't concede a lot. So I can't really predict the final, to be honest.
I think
fantastic Grimsby got
the
there.
two better teams in the league have obviously reached this, Bristol Rovers and Grimsby. Out of the playoff four, they probably are the two strongest.
I'd say so, yeah.
Just say Eastleigh's first season in the league, they wasn't expected to get nowhere near that. Forest Green, they were mid-table, for majority of the season and had a good late run. So I think the two best teams have made it. Is it going to be difficult for Grimsby to overcome a team with, still League Two pedigree?
I think it will, because I think a lot of that team are League Two quality as well, the players that they've got. I also think a big factor within it will be the amount of supporters that Bristol Rovers take. Obviously, being a large city, they're looking, I believe, at taking about 30,000 fans, which is just astronomical. I mean, to fill Wembley, hopefully Grimsby can take a reasonable amount as well. It should be a fantastic occasion if there is a big fan base there, and it'll be a proper conference playoff final.
Now, in an ideal world, Grimsby Town would get the promotion, but what if that isn't the case? What would Grimsby do from then on next season?
Disappointing, obviously, if they don't. It'll be a massive rebuilding job. I think that the squad that they've got, they're in the best position that they could be over the past, 3-4 seasons that they've been in that league. I think the squad that they've got now, the squad harmony that they've built, and the quality of players, the backup that they've got, is the best. And I don't think they've got a better opportunity than they have to obviously beating Bristol Rovers.
Now, when we spoke to former player Nielsen on this show, he did say the squad's good enough for automatic promotion. Now, he wasn't far off, predicting that it probably is a team good enough for it. Bristol Rovers and Barnet are obviously slightly better. So, if Grimsby do remain in this league, will these players leave? Or is it, again, a promotion push next season? Or does finances dictate otherwise?
It remains to be seen, doesn't it? Because we don't know what's going to happen. And the manager obviously can't plan for it yet because we don't know, if Town are going to go up. So it's a tricky sort of time for the club. It'd be interesting to see what would happen if Grimsby, both if they go up and if they remain in this league. Whether if they go up, the players that have got them promoted will stay. And obviously financially, I think that'll have a big impact on who stays if they don't win in the playoff final.
Key players for this final then for Grimsby, more than Rovers, I suppose. We'll look at that. Who should start this game? Who's impressed you in the playoffs?
Oh, Pearson has been solid. I think Pearson will have a big part to play in keeping Bristol Rovers out at that end.
He's a leader on the pitch as well.
Definitely, yeah, and I think at a big occasion like this, I think he's the sort of player that the others look towards and think, he's going to give us a boost. He knows the way forward for the club. I think also the strikers are going to have a big part to play because Bristol Rovers have been fantastic defending for the majority of the season. So the strikers are going to have a big part to play for Grimsby as well. Yeah,
I watched Rovers in the two legs and they did look solid at the back. So can I take a prediction from you now in a neutral kind of way? I think Rovers are the favourites. Can I take a score from you?
I'm going to go with 1-1. I'm going to go with a 1-1. I think it's going to be a very, very tight game, but I think it'll go to a 1-1, and then it remains to be seen what's going to happen.
Thank you, Hardy. Let's see what happens with that. We'll look at the latest set of results then. Hull City lost 3-1 to Arsenal at the KC Stadium on Monday as the Tigers were caught cold by an on-fire Arsenal team who led 3-0 at half-time. Despite Stephen Quinn's second-half goal, the result means Hull are now only a point clear of Sunderland with 3 games remaining. Scunthorpe were never at the races as they lost 5-2 at Doncaster. Despite Hakeem Adelakan scoring his 3rd goal in 4 games, it was a poor way for the Iron to end their season, who end the campaign in 16th. The Iron will hope to do better next season. And as we've just been discussing, the Mariners beat Eastleigh 3-0 and 5-1 on aggregate and will now face Rovers in the playoff final next Sunday at Wembley, who beat Forest Green. So we'll look at Hull City, their latest result against Arsenal. I said to you, they beat Liverpool. Arsenal are a cut above Liverpool this season. They're a different quality, and I expected that result. Is it what you expected?
It was. I think we discussed that last week, didn't we? And said about, I think we both said we thought Arsenal would win 3-0 roughly. So we got the amount of goals that Arsenal scored right. Obviously, Hull managed to pinch one, which didn't have a massive impact on the game. But I think they will be disappointed, especially with the first half performance, to lose those goals. I think it's just disappointing in the situation they're in. You think they'd maybe show a little bit more fight. Obviously, Arsenal have got the quality. And when players like Sanchez, they're always going to produce. And the big game players, they obviously, that's why they pay so much for them.
Yeah, I think it's that individual brilliance as well, that teams, you can't defend against that. They're unstoppable sometimes.
That's what the big clubs have got.
Yeah.
You look at the likes of Chelsea, you've got Hazard, you've got Arsenal, you've got Sanchez, United have got players like Rooney, and that is the difference.
Arsenal then, they do look quality. They may challenge for the title next season. Hull, can they stay up?
It's so tight down there. It is so tight, and it didn't help with Sunderland beating Southampton. Obviously, that was a huge result for them. They've still got a game in hand over Hull, and if they win that game in hand, they could obviously.
Well, that game is in fact against Arsenal.
It is against Arsenal.
So
yes.
maybe Arsenal can do Hull a favour and beat Sunderland.
Possibly,
but you never know.
You never know, and the thing is, Arsenal have got the FA Cup final to worry about as well. So that's another big game for them.
Yes, Scunthorpe United. Then obviously their season was sort of declared a couple of games ago. So can we forgive them for losing 5-2 at Doncaster?
Well, the fans won't, not against a local rival. I think that's the problem there. That they were absolutely hammered in that game. Fans can accept a defeat if the team is showing a bit of passion and a bit of desire, especially in a derby. But to go down by that scoreline, I think really disappointing.
As we said, players, they're playing for their future at the club. They're playing to get a starting berth in pre-season. Now we'll come on to the released players shortly for Scunthorpe, but I don't think they did themselves any favours.
No.
So can you see many players leaving, many players going, from now on?
There's going to be a reshuffle. I think Robbins has sort of hinted at that with, as obviously we're going to discuss later on in the show, the release list and the retain list. I think he's looking to shake things up and try and push the team towards maybe trying to get into a playoff place next year. Now that remains to be seen, and I think he'll try and use the loan market wisely again, which he's done on occasions this season.
Grimsby Town then, we obviously talked about the final just before, but the two playoff legs, what impressed you about Grimsby during those two games?
Professionalism. I thought the performance at Blundell Park was really, really professional. 3-0 scoreline, I thought was maybe a little bit harsh on Eastleigh. I didn't think they were that bad, especially in the first half. They dominated a lot of the possession, and Grimsby for the first 20-30 minutes didn't get into their half a lot, and certainly didn't threaten the goal. So I thought 3-0 was a really good scoreline for Grimsby. So the professionalism there, it's not something you always associate with Grimsby in those bigger games, but I was really impressed by that.
They look very solid.
Definitely.
So as we mentioned, Hardy, we'll look at Scunthorpe United's released and retained list. Now we can assess whether he thinks he's made the right choice. Now me and you were gobsmacked really at this one. Sam Slocum leaving the club.
Yeah.
What is possibly the thinking behind that one?
I really don't know. I can't understand it. Obviously he's been at the club for a long time now. He's also a local lad. I just thought he's the sort of player that Mark Robbins might have thought, even if he's not playing week in, week out, because obviously Luke Daniels is a very good keeper, I just thought he'd be the sort of character that they might need in the dressing room to, whether he's had talks with Slocum and Slocum said, can you guarantee me first team football?
Might be the case.
And Robbins might have said no. That might be the reason he sort of said, well, you're free to leave.
Do you think that injury has played a part in that? Because he might not be 100%. Robbins might think, this may reoccur in the next season. I can't rely on that.
It could have done, yeah, it could have been that. And also, that injury happening at the time it did was very, very unfortunate, and it's kept him out, obviously, for a vast amount of time. So I think Sam Slocum will be very disappointed, especially being, a Scunthorpe lad and doing so well for the club over the years.
James Seven has been released as well, which is probably even more shocking.
Well,
because of, Slocum's going. Oh, we'll get rid of Seven as well.
And there's apparently having talks with Joe Anion, who's been the backup keeper for Scunthorpe this season. So they had a lot of keepers on the books. They had 4.
Do you think that's a finance thing? Anion will obviously be on a lesser wage, so to speak, than the two more senior guys.
Perhaps so, yeah. And I think James Seven, another player who's been at the club for a couple of years, and he's not quite had the game time. He's only really been playing when Slocum's been injured. So I think for James Seven, he's wanting to maybe extend his career and go to another club, get first team opportunities. And it remains to be seen whether Joe Anion will be, because at the time talking now, he hasn't actually officially been agreed to a new deal. So they'll certainly need a backup keeper though.
Marcus Williams, 47 appearances for the club over the season. That's huge.
Another one I'm surprised with there, because whether they've got something set up for a new fullback to come in to replace him, that's the only thing I can think. Obviously Williams' second spell with the club as well, and You know, I've heard a few Scunthorpe fans saying he's been decent this season, and he's certainly a threat from fullback. He's an attacking fullback. So
could fans look at this and think, you know, Robbins wouldn't do this just on a whim? Is he bringing in more League One quality players? You know, could it be a positive thing?
He must be. You know, there's got to be some thought that's gone into it. He's not just going to go into these things and just say we're getting rid of you and not have something maybe lined up. So whether it is a case of him getting a lone player in for Williams' departure remains to be seen.
Thank you, Hardy, for that. Right, we'll move on. We'll look at this week's head-to-head. It's another special from Greg. Disley, Clay, Brown, Artis, McLaughlin, Linnell John Lewis, Pittman, Pearson, Magnay, Toto, McEwen, an improvement on last week for myself there, Hardy.
It's a good effort, Reidy.
Are you
It's going to take a lot to beat that, I think.
It might do. Right, we'll go to this week's half-time teaser. Hakeem Adelakan is Scunthorpe United's third highest goal scorer this season, but who is number 1 and number 2? We'll see you in a few minutes. Hello and welcome back to Extra. Now the half-time teaser answers Paddy Madden in first place with 17 goals for the Iron and Gary McSheffrey in second place who scored 10. Well done if you got that. We'll move on to the second part of the head-to-head. It's Hardy's turn.
Right, McEwen, Pearson, Ntiala, Thomas, Magnay, Disley, Brown, Clay, McCreth, John Lewis, Hannah, Pittman, Palmer.
You're improving there, Hardy.
Not bad at all, was it?
Every week you pull one out the bag.
Yeah,
now,
a bit better with you this week, though.
The answers we could have had were McEwen, Thomas, Magnay, Doig, McLaughlin, Boyce, Brown, McCreth, Disley, John Lewis and Connell. The team were at the bare bones at that point.
Definitely, yeah.
Right, we'll crack on, Hardy. We'll look at the ramifications for Hull City getting relegated from the Premier League. Now that can be, well, that can be huge. What would that mean for Hull City?
It's a difficult one. You need to have a think about what possibly the chairman would do. Asim Alam, obviously, his position is a little bit shaky at the moment anyway. We don't know whether he's planning on staying for the long haul or whether he's looking at selling up in the future and things like that. So what Hull need to do is, if that does happen, you don't want to think negatively that Hull will be relegated. They need to put some sort of plan in place. Now, they're going to have players that are on pretty high wages. I'm assuming the likes of Huddleston, Livermore, perhaps Abel Hernandez might be on half-decent wages. And will they need to leave if they go down to the Championship?
I think so. Worst case scenario for this club would be Alam, you know, sees no longer a chance there to improve it. You know, he leaves, he sells the club, Bruce leaves, your top players leave. What happens then? Is it another case of Wigan Athletic or Wolverhampton Wanderers?
Well, yeah, we've seen it in the past with clubs who have been relegated from the Premier League and then they've been relegated again. And that, obviously, for stability with the club is absolutely huge. You could compare it to perhaps Grimsby's demise when they were in Division 1. I know it's not the Premier League, but that demise from there, the relegations, and obviously ending up in non-league.
Is it like a reverse momentum? If once you go down, you know, that ripple effect, you keep going?
Yeah, it's like a domino effect or a ripple effect. That can happen. And if you're losing players that are on decent wages, that are good quality players that can play in the Premier League, and other clubs want to snap them up, especially the teams that will be coming up, Watford and Bournemouth, as we already know, they might see some of them players and think, well, they can add a bit of quality to our team. So it would be something based on stability. They need to make sure, if they do go down, which we hope they don't, that they have something in place to make sure they don't go down again.
Now, if they stay up, what does that mean for the club? Does Bruce stay then still? Do they invest in players, or are they content with just saying, you know, as long as we remain 15th in the Premier League, we'll be happy with that.
I've said it earlier on in the season. I think they need to be looking to invest. Obviously, they've got to look in the right areas, but they need to secure, I think, that the players that can come off the bench, the backup players, I think they need a little bit more stability there. They've been unfortunate with injuries, granted, but it's just the players that come in from that I'm just thinking, are they Premier League quality? I think that's where the worry is for Hull City fans at the minute as well. So I think that is something that Steve Bruce, if they do stay up, that he needs to have a look at and seriously consider some bigger players that can come in off the bench.
Now, you've got some fixtures there to look at, in regards of staying up. Do you think this is possible?
It's going to be tricky, as we've mentioned on previous shows. The games that they've got coming up are going to be tough. They are going to be tough because obviously they have got the Burnley game, as we're going to talk about later on, is huge.
So do you think they can stay up?
I think I'm going to go yes and say Sunderland will go down.
That's what I think. That's my choice as well. We'll move on, Hardy. We'll look at Scunthorpe's season. We'll forget about the players. We've spoke about that. The current season as a whole, then, they're newly promoted into League One. Assess that season for me now. What do you think to that season? Job done? Good season?
Personally, I would have been expecting a little bit more. Now, that was at the beginning of the season, and that was on the back of Russ Wilcox's fantastic run. And obviously, you can't predict for what's then going to happen in the league above. I did think they'd do a little bit better, and I actually thought they would be pushing towards a playoff place. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened, and they've been battling at the other end of the table.
I think had 3 or 4 more results gone their way, they'd be near to that. That's how tight it's been this season.
Yeah, they would, and League One has been like that. And I think it was around Christmas, January time when they had those games in hand because of the cup runs and other things that were happening. They were the games they really needed to step it up and think, right, this is where we're going to pick up the points and we're going to try and move up the league. And they didn't. I think that was the stumbling block for them. And then they found themselves in a relegation battle, and you're thinking, where do we go from here? Are we going to stay up? I think that was the problem for them.
So obviously content to stay in League One, I suppose. It could have been worse. What's next for Scunthorpe United? What's the situation next season?
I think they look to push for the playoffs, and I think with Matt Robbins, and I think with the sort of solidity that he's brought to the club, I think he might know how to do it. He might have the magic touch. I hope that's not a jinx, but I hope he can bring in the right players.
He'll have a pre-season now to work with the players, which he didn't have previously, so that's only a bonus, sure.
Well, that's a big thing. That is a massive thing for a manager, so hopefully he can work his magic over the summer.
Do you think they can stay in League One then? Because, of course, Wigan Athletic, coming down from the Championship, still got some quality in there. Are they favourites to win League One?
There's going to be some tough teams in League One. It is a difficult
Millwall.
league. Yeah, it's a difficult one to get out of. But I think I'm pretty confident with how Scunthorpe will do next season, providing they bring in some of the right players.
No second season syndrome?
No, I don't think so. Well, we're hoping they're not having to worry about relegation, and the fans, obviously, they just want to see the club do well. And I think there's a lot that are hoping for, as I said, that promotion push.
Obviously, this new stadium as well, that's being put into place. So do you think that the remit for Robbins is, from Swan, is it to keep us in League One, the very minimum, if you can, get us in them playoffs? Well,
you forget about that as well, and there's a massive side to that.
Financial ramifications as well.
Financially, it's huge, because if they're building a brand new stadium, which is going to be purpose-built, and it's the sort of stadium that, it's going to be League One and above standard, they need to make sure that they're staying in that league, because if they go down, if they begin dropping leagues and then attendances start to dwindle, then you start questioning what was the point of the new stadium. So it's a major risk, but I think if they are getting that new stadium, they need to be looking to push towards, obviously, League One, Championship.
So out of the players that remain at Scunthorpe, who's important next season for the Iron? Who should they definitely keep hold of?
Well, Paddy Madden's going to be important. He's not been as good towards the end of this season. He went on a little bit of a bad run of form, not scoring as many goals. But I think that before Christmas, he was absolutely fantastic. And Gary McSheffrey as well.
The 2 top scorers for the club need a pre-season maybe as well then with Robbins.
Definitely. I think those 2 will be big players, providing obviously both of them do stay for next season. And McSheffrey seems a bit sort of like playing beyond his years. He was brilliant from what I saw of him this season.
He's got invaluable experience as well to bring to the first team.
Definitely, yeah. He's played at that higher level, which will be a massive factor, and he can bring that to the squad and share it with the rest of the players.
Now, premature, can I ask you for a prediction for their final position next season?
The position next season? I'm going to go with...
We'll keep this on record.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with 6th. Oh. I'm going to be really optimistic and go with 6th and think we'll try and push for the playoffs.
Thank you. We'll look at the upcoming fixtures then. After their 3-1 defeat against Arsenal on Monday, Steve Bruce acknowledged the importance of getting a result against Burnley, with games against Tottenham and Manchester United still to come. Sunderland are just 1 point behind them in the table, but they also have a game in hand against Arsenal. the one fixture there, Hardy. So let's start with Hull City Burnley.
Good choice, I think, Lee.
What do we think to this fixture? A must-win for Hull City.
It is absolutely massive. Steve Bruce has gone on record already saying how big it is. I personally think Burnley are already, unfortunately, doomed.
Does that mean that in this fixture, Burnley have think, you know what, we've got nothing to lose?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, they are still playing for the Premiership survival, so they have still got something to play for. But I don't think they can do it. Although mathematically it's still possible. I don't think
it's kind of beyond them now. I think if you're at this with the this point at this stage of the season, it's difficult to come back from it. I don't think any team has, have they?
Well, it would be seriously difficult. I mean, we've seen teams do it in the past. Sunderland were a bit of a miracle escape last year.
I think
West
the past
Brom,
2 or 3 seasons, Sunderland have been having squeaky bum time.
Have been in it, and we saw West Brom do it many seasons ago, and I believe Fulham did it a couple of years ago as well.
Under Hodgson, that they did that with.
Yeah, so they'll be looking. Maybe team spirit might carry them through, but I can't see it personally. And I think this game for Hull is absolutely huge. They need to be looking to beat Burnley. I personally think they've got more quality in the side than Burnley, and I fancy them to get a result. I really do.
If Hull City manage these 3 points, can we say they're safe with that win?
Yeah. Should we say they're safe?
Well,
should we just say they're safe?
Sunderland's game in hand is against Arsenal, so you'd think Arsenal would beat Sunderland. I'd be disappointed if they didn't.
You would expect it. You would expect Arsenal to beat Sunderland, especially with the performance we saw against Hull with Arsenal. They were on fire, especially in that first half.
So that would put 4 points between the two clubs with 2 games to go. So that might just be enough for Hull City. Maybe 1 more point to guarantee it, because we've seen Sunderland pull off some crazy results as well.
We have. There's also other teams that are still in the mix for relegation. Obviously, Leicester aren't safe, Newcastle aren't safe, Aston Villa aren't safe.
Who have Sunderland yet to play? I mean, you've got those.
Well, Sunderland's upcoming fixtures, just bear with me a second. They've got a really, really nasty bag of fixtures. So they've got Everton away, they've got Leicester, at home, they've got Arsenal away and Chelsea away.
So trips to Goodison, the Emirates, and Stamford Bridge.
Stamford Bridge. I mean, I don't fancy them to get anything at Arsenal or at Chelsea, but I believe they got something at Chelsea last season when they were really struggling.
Barini penalty,
I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
So
and I think Wickham got a goal against Man City, did he, last season?
All still to play for then.
It's going to be really tight, really tricky.
Thank you very much, Hardy. Well, that's all we have time for this week, I'm afraid. Tune in, of course, every Saturday at 10 a.m. here on Estuary TV. For all other sport, you can watch On The Bench Tuesdays at 8 o'clock. This week it's hosted by Rob Underwood. Don't forget, you can contact the show by using Twitter, Facebook or email onthebench@estuary.tv, and you'll find all the relevant information on your screen now. You can also follow Greg, our stat man, on Twitter using the handle @TakesStat. So from all of us here, it's goodbye.